So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the man of the hour, Mr. Eric Clopper, and Eric is the creator and author of the dramatic stage presentation, Sex and Circumcision. Eric Clopper, thank you for coming out here to say hello to Bloodstained Men and Their Friends and your whole baby on the front lines of the struggle for human freedom in the United States.
Well, exactly. I mean, I live in Boston. I saw you guys were doing a tour, and I wanted to come say hi. I mean, you guys have been bringing attention to this issue for years, and I know it's not, very easy, and it's tough to get people to listen to the message. So, in solidarity, I wanted to come and say hi and meet everybody, and see how we can, advance the cause of basic human rights for all, because we don't have that in this country, and we need to address the underlying causes. And I won't go into the depth here. You can see the show, but it's a pretty dark place that we live, and our children will not forgive us.
Eric Clopper, why don't you tell us about the show? I did a brief introduction of what we were talking about from across the street, but why don't you tell us about the show, what it was, how you conceived of it, and what you did and what happened?
Sure, I'd love to. So, as Brother K was saying, I gave my magnum opus at Harvard University on May 1st. It was called Sex and Circumcision, an American Love Story. It was extremely well received. It was about 2 hours long. You can see on YouTube. We'll put in the link in the comments. But essentially, the inception of that was I was invited to give a talk on circumcision during Cornell University's Sexual Health Week. And when I was talking to the organizer, he said, so I asked, what's the format? What are the requirements? He goes, whatever you want to do. I was like, yeah, you know what I could do if it's whatever I wanted to do? So I gave a lecture there, and it was called Circumcision in the U.S., Identifying Truths and Trends in Genital Cutting Cultures, because I've been studying this for the last few years or so, instead of going to get my PhD in physics. And that talk was extremely well received at Cornell. I mean, I could see the students literally physically gripping their seats throughout. And they were laughing, they were enjoying it, they were understanding the magnitude of the problem we're addressing. And so when that lecture was very well received at Cornell, I said, okay, well, we should do this much bigger, and we should incorporate more penis jokes, because the students responded to it. It makes it more palatable. We don't need to be deadly serious on a deadly serious topic for everything, because it is can be uncomfortable. And so I, during the weekends and sometimes after work, I would start developing content to incorporate more jokes. And so instead of identifying truths and trends in genital cutting cultures, it became a love story. And it's, the recurring trope is I have this girlfriend who really inspires me, and you should watch the show, but it becomes a gag as the layers of the lies that we've lived in continually be peeled away until you realize we live in a genital cutting culture. And that one fact alone makes this a very unpleasant place to be born. And that's the unfortunate reality. And the show has been extremely well received, copious laughter and applause throughout, with a standing ovation at the end. And then Harvard promptly fired me afterwards, despite being a bastion of free speech. And so now I'm pursuing litigation against Harvard, the Crimson, and Baysafe, which is a company that illegally stole some sensitive materials and intellectual property. And so I'd love to get into that, but that's going to be for the courts to decide. But I had wished that I would have just given the show that was well received and then come back to work, but I was strongly, promptly retaliated against. Still don't even know what the charges were. And now, we're just going to see what happens. But with, the Bloodstained Men and Their Friends continuously protesting, bringing awareness to this problem, see people are responding well and taking pictures with the signs. With Brendan Marota's documentary coming out in 28 days, and the anti-activist community can really help promote that to trendsetters. And then hopefully my show can contribute to understanding the reality we live in, which is a genital cutting culture. We cut off important parts of our children's bodies and genitals for no reason whatsoever, to either for medical profits or to protect religious ideologies. And our children will not forgive us, nor should they. And we need to recognize the ugly reality that we live in and ban genital cutting. It's been done for girls since 1996, and it should have been done for boys at the same time. And so now we need to confront people who may oppose us based off of humanistic values. We have a responsibility to our children to address this problem now. And that's why I'm so optimistic and happy to say hi, because I live in Boston. But that's kind of my spiel. I didn't mean to...
Awesome, awesome. And that suggests a number of things for me to follow up. If you have a few more minutes
please.
to talk to us.
I mean, I live around here and unemployed now, so I got some time.
One thing that really struck me, many things in your show struck me, and with intellectual admiration and respect for the way you were able to wrap your mind around the enormity of this problem. But one theme you kept coming back to was, I can't believe I have to be doing this.
Right.
And I think all intactivists at one time or another, or every day, feel that same thing. How in the world are we as American citizens brought up to believe that we are a free people? How in the world do we have to keep making this case that children should be protected from genital mutilation? Yeah. And it gives you a sense that you're living in a twilight zone of some kind.
It's definitely the twilight zone, brother. Okay, I mean, to convince people that you cannot take a scalpel and hack off important parts of children's reproductive organ at birth is a pretty easy argument, actually. But we've been so brainwashed by the media, and we have ignorant physicians, which, you know, they're very intelligent in certain things, but they've never been taught this. And then they assume this air of authority, but they don't know about basic penile anatomy. And we have a responsibility to educate, and we should listen to all of the other doctors in the world who will be rating us. And they should be, because what we're doing is heinous to our children. But
thank you, Eric Clopper. Thank you for your work. And how can, tell our friends, tell our viewers how exactly they can see your presentation, because there are probably people who still haven't seen it. Facebook, when we share your video on Facebook, the algorithms do not favor showing YouTube videos on most news feeds. So tell people right now how they can see your 2-hour presentation, and suggest a strategy if no one has the patience to sit through 2 hours.
Absolutely. Well, so if you go to Clopper.com, my name is Eric Clopper, CLOPPER.com. That will, on the home page, will be a link to the trailer and to the YouTube video. Or if you just type in Sex and Circumcision, Eric Clopper on Google or YouTube, it'll be right there. And it's getting a few thousand views every day, which is great. More children being saved. Doing our best.
And you also have a legal problem, you indicated.
Exactly. So if you actually sign up to my email list on Clopper.com, I'll be sending updates on the developing lawsuits I have for wrongful termination, among other things, against Harvard University, against theft or conversion, against base aid. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the legal terms. And then about libel, because immediately afterwards I said, so the way to shut down intactivists is to say, oh, you're just a bigot because you don't like cutting off parts of children's bodies. It's no. And as a Jewish man myself, that argument's even more ludicrous. But I am suing the Crimson because the headline was employee goes on nude anti-Semitic rant. And independent of whatever you interpret how I said, it was not a nude rant, and that's objectively libelous. And I'm going to be suing them for libel. So I have all these lawsuits. You can follow the development on Clopper.com if you sign up to my email list, and we'll see how things develop with, you know, lawsuits, documentary, continued press exposure with the Bloodstained Men. And, you know, we need to wake America up out of this twilight zone and protect our kids. And
something you said just now reminded me of another very, very powerful moment in your presentation. And I could see you had to pause and kind of gulp and take a breath to say it without showing the strong emotions behind it. It was the moment when your father looked you in the eye and said to you regarding your views on circumcision, and your father said to you, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong."
And so, as someone who is a scientist and a physicist who's studied it for years and who's, you know, been afflicted by this, I'm just not wrong. And that's kind of when I started to understand how this genital mutilation group works, is that they all perform this hideous act of evil on their children, and since they're all complicit in this evil, that's why they are so clannish. And that started turning the gears of group psychology and how these genital mutilation cultures work. And we have a responsibility to our children to step in and force them to stop, and I'm happy to take the reins and do that.
And Eric Clopper, calling circumcision a hideous act of evil is not off the charts. The Jewish scholar Leonard Glick wrote, "Marked in your flesh," he said in an interview with James Lowen that the circumcision, the general cutting of boys and girls, is fundamentally evil. And American society has already recognized that it is evil with regard to girls.
It's identical. There's no difference amputating functional sexual or erogenous organs from any child. Gender's irrelevant. It's not part of the equation. We just like to tell ourselves it is so we don't have to realize just how shitty of a culture we are. And that's reality. And I think now we're starting to begin to realize that, which is great. And our children will thank us in the future.
Thank you, Eric Clopper. Thank you for talking to us here today on the front lines of the struggle for human rights and freedom for American boys from genital mutilation. And ultimately, I believe that our struggle will prevail and affect the outcome of the worldwide struggle for all children, regardless of gender, male, female, and intersex, to be protected from genital mutilation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brother K. Happy to be here and keep up the good work.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Clopper here in Boston, Massachusetts on day 15 of the Bloodstained Men's Northeast Seaboard Circumcision Crisis Protest Tour. Eric, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you so much, Brother K.